Welcome to the Automation Unplugged podcast, the podcast for technology professionals, featuring leading industry personalities. I'm your host, Ron Callis.
Let's get started.
Hello there. Ron Callis here with another episode of Automation Unplugged. Automation Unplugged, as always, is brought to you by my day job over at One Firefly, and now also Amplify People. So you guys have probably heard the Amplify People commercial now in some of the Automation Unplugged episodes. That's an exciting new business where we're helping the AV and integration space with their hiring and talent placement needs. So definitely reach out to us for that. Actually, that website, that's brand new. We just launched it last week, is amppeople.com. That's amppeople.com. Now, that business has been going for just almost 2 years now, but the website is brand new. So you might want to check that out. So today I am very happy and excited to bring you a great guest, a guest out of the Atlanta market. And I think you're going to have a lot of fun learning about his business. I'm bringing you Richard Quinones. And if you know him well, you'll call him Q or Mr. Q. And let's go ahead and bring in Rich. And let's say hello and see how he's doing. Hello, Rich. How are you?
Doing good, Ron. Appreciate the invite to this podcast.
Oh, my pleasure. And Rich, where are you coming to us from?
I'm coming to you from my office in Snellville, Georgia. That's where our main office is, but it's pretty much 20 minutes outside of Atlanta market.
Okay. Is it north, south, east, west? Which direction? East of Atlanta.
Yeah.
Okay.
East of Atlanta.
What type of work does SB Comm do?
Well, the easiest way we explain it is that we integrate spaces with technology and try to make it a seamless experience for residential and commercial spaces.
Okay. So would you describe, let's just look at the calendar year 2025. What percentage of that work do you think will come from residential type projects versus commercial projects?
Well, so our focus is definitely residential in the new construction market. We definitely focus on that. Organically, we have moved into apartment complexes and integrating technology into those spaces too. It's 2025 and we're seeing a lot of consumers and, tenants or homeowners. I mean, technology is more utility now versus, a luxury as it used to be. So, it's just a no-brainer to go ahead and enter that apartment complex area. So that way they can increase their tenants and keep it long-term because they're able to integrate those spaces with technology.
I'm super curious. So what type of technology are you generally putting into the apartment projects? Is it just in the common areas or is it in the actual units?
It's in the units too. This is something we came across organically through another residential project. And it's a really unique product. And what we do is we implement a hub into each unit, right? It's connected to the full community network. So a lot of the new construction communities are doing a managed network through a service provider. And then we actually integrate these individual hubs and the assets we put in by default, which is like a leak detector for, the washer or the water heater, right? Some of those high liability risks, as well as the door locks and thermostat control for, energy efficiency. And what's really unique about this is we integrate that into the property management software. So, like one of the big names out there is Yardi or RealPage. So all the property management team needs to do now is move in the tenant. By default, the tenant now gets a welcome email, a programmed code gets put into the door lock. If there's access control in the building with video intercom, that name shows up for that unit. And now they have an app that they can control their apartment. They can control the thermostats. They can, receive notifications. So let's say a leak detector, right, detects water, and you're at work and it's coming from the washer, right? So that's a big liability risk for both property management and for yourself as a tenant. And it will immediately generate push notifications to the property management team. It will give a temporary code to the maintenance guy so he can gain access. The tenant gets notified via notification all at the same time, as well as when the maintenance guy is in there, whether they resolved it and then fixed it. So it's really, really unique, and it informs all parties in real time of what's happening.
This is the first time I've heard of this in an apartment project. Actually, people listening probably going, Ron, this has been happening for years. It's the first time I've heard of this happening. How did this demand get created? I.e., how did the project get sold? Did you sell this developer on this tech, or did they come to the table with a specification and then you met that specification? How did it come about?
Yeah, so it started with a community that we were doing in Atlanta called Eastwood. And it was through a residential builder. And we created a package of what that property management team wanted. At first, it was just amenities, right? Access control and community surveillance. They wanted to monitor that area, monitor the garage doors, the way the floor plan was laid out. They came across another platform that's more commercial based, designed for property management. And they asked us to fulfill it because we already had the contract. So we did some interviewing with those companies to figure out what that channel partner agreement will look like. And when we saw it, we saw an opportunity there to say, well, that's what we do. That's our core focus, right? We want to integrate spaces with technology. And in that commercial space, you typically have your access control low voltage contractor. Then you have your surveillance low voltage contractor, your IT contractor, your audio video contractor. So in that commercial space, they will deal with anywhere between 7 to 10 different low voltage contractors. And they all have their own scope. So when they met us and they were like, whoa, one company to do it all? I felt like it was Lord of the Rings for a second. And, we continued that conversation and we created the channel partner relationship. And, that led to other projects. So, now we're currently negotiating with other commercial properties and developers that deal with that build to rent environment. And that's where we see the market going to. So it was just a no brainer for us to say, yeah, let's jump on this. It's, that it's in our wheelhouse. I mean, there's nothing new to learn. If anything, we know more than they did.
I don't know if you're privy to this, but I'm imagining that if the developer puts this tech into their rental building, it would probably change the liabilities and like the protections or the insurance requirements within the building. I would imagine that all changes now that there's more technology to ultimately protect that asset.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why, if you heard me say it earlier, I said we put the asset into the units, because everything we're determining is based on liabilities. So the return on investment on that is through the roof. Even just energy saving, right? If you have, let's say, 10 units in a building that are empty and it shows vacant in the property management, then that thermostat automatically went to energy efficient mode, right? Where it only recognizes the maximum points in either heat or cold, saving you a ton of energy. So yeah, it is definitely a game changer and a huge return on investment. I could only imagine paying the electric bill for a 300 unit community, right? That's through the roof, right?
Got to be for real.
Yeah.
On the residential side, or the single, residential unit type project, what are the typical types of projects you're doing? Like what's a small, a medium, and a large project for you, typical?
Yeah, so that's a great question. The smallest we go down to is networking and security, right? So networking, because that's the foundation, right? Like if you're building a house, you're not going to build it on dirt, right? Your house will fall, right? So we start there with the network infrastructure to make sure it's solid, even if it's for a bunch of DIY equipment, whatever that case may be. That's where we start. And then same with security, right? We want to be able to say our customers are protected in their homes. So that's where it starts. And then it goes all the way up to, you know, being Iron Man and having Jarvis in your house. You know,
Okay.
the range is huge.
Okay.
What I always tell our clients is your limitation is your imagination.
Yeah. That's in terms of Jarvis. Now, Jarvis is inferring AI. Do you do AI? Do you do like voice control of homes, or do you stick to touch panels and keypads?
No, we definitely use AI. We use voice. We also design with redundancy. So that way, if whatever particular technology might fail, you'll have a different path for control. And then the other thing we do is we call it overriding, right? It might be a default schedule to do X. Well, we want you to be able to easily override that. And voice seems to be the way to do that. So we utilize Josh AI for that. And then depending on how that system is designed, it might be controlling a control force system, or it might be independent. It all depends on the scope and what that vision is for the customer.
Got it. Rich, take us back in time. Help us understand your background. Where'd you come from?
Well, let's, I feel like I'm
We
in
go
Wizard of
back
Oz.
as far as you're comfortable. Go back to elementary school, maybe high school. You tell us.
If we go back to elementary school, that was the first time I played Mortal Kombat in a bodega on the corner of Brooklyn outside of my elementary school.
It's funny. I used to go to, we used to have to, when I was in high school, so this was in the mid 90s, we used to have to go to a McDonald's and a Hardee's fast food restaurant. They had Mortal Kombat and Street Fighter. And me and my buddies would go into the I think it was a Hardee's that had Mortal Kombat. And that was our exposure to video games.
Yep. That was my exposure. That and Nintendo, of course. I'm an 80s baby, so Nintendo is near and dear to my heart. But going back into you understand how I got into low voltage. I've always been, and that's why I tell my customers, I'm your nerd. I love technology. That's like a big passion of mine. And how it helps save on time for processing whatever the task is. So I'm very process driven in my brain. So I noticed that when I was younger. And then it started with me actually breaking my mom's Windows 3.1 computer because I took it apart because I wanted to understand why it works the way it works. So I was, needless to say, punished and had to rebuild that computer to get out of punishment. That lesson brought me into, okay, I was able to accomplish this. What's next? So I ended up going to college for DeVry University for electronic engineering and realizing that that's, I really like it. We converted that to Bachelor of Science in Technical Management because my brain is very process driven. So I felt like that would be more useful. But during that time, we were going through some personal financial issues and came across a low voltage contract installation company that did cable modems. So for everybody who knows, we were on dial-up in the 90s. Cable modems were brand new, 3 megabits download. What? And it was the latest and greatest thing, but computers didn't have network cards to connect. So that became my first job to help my family out. Started making a bunch of money doing that on a contract basis. And the companies realized, well, we got one technician doing wiring, one technician doing computer stuff. What if we merge that? So they approached me. This was in, again, all in New York, where I was raised, Brooklyn. And they approached me and asked me, would I be interested in running wires? And I was like, sure, let's do it. And started learning low voltage at that point. And then it just went from there. Started traveling up and down the East Coast for many years. I pretty much hit every state at least 3 times.
Were you a sole proprietor doing this contracting, or you worked for a contracting company that would sub under other companies?
I was a sub under a sub. Yeah. Definitely working for a contracting company who had the major contract. And then I was that subcontractor underneath it.
Okay.
So I was just dispatched work orders at that time. So traveled up and down the East Coast, like I said, seeing different cultures, seeing different people, different perspectives, right? But then one thing again, with that process, part of my brain was like, oh, resource hours are being drained here or here. And I'm like, hey guys,
all the inefficiencies in the system.
Yeah, it was driving me crazy. So I kept bringing it. I see everything as a partnership, no matter what it is. So, and I got that from a book I read called The Leader Who Had No Title, right? By Robin Sharma. So that's been a part of my internal core values, is to always be a leader. And so kept bringing it, and it kept being received as nagging. So then I finally went to the West Coast to see what that culture looked like. Again, contracting and stepping into $50 million homes where 13 master bedrooms and each one has its own garage. I mean, mind-boggling homes. And that's when I fell in love, because the first thing I noticed was, this is all logic. Oh yeah, that's exactly how I think, right? If this, then that, if this, whatever, this variable's here, and then you got to do this. So that's when that was it. I was married to home automation at that point. We were married. And
that's amazing. When you were working all that contracting work on the East Coast, were you doing a mixture of resi and commercial and industrial, and when you went west, is that when you were in the big luxury residential? Is that the shift that happened for you, at least in terms of your exposure?
Yeah. Resi, commercial here on the East Coast, audio, video mainly, and networking. Again, back from my history, right? Doing cable modems and networking, setting up different type of network infrastructures, had to become A+, Network Plus certified, all those kind of things at that time. So IT infrastructure has been where I started, right? So when I started going into the luxury, and then I was like, well, this is all starts with the network infrastructure, right? So that's where those companies are like, wow, you're not an AV guy, you're an IT guy that loves this world. So they got me involved. So then after that, and seeing all these inefficiencies again, I wear my heart on my sleeve. My team knows it. And if I see something, I'm going to say something. And it's not to say you're doing an awful job. I just think of it as productive conflict. Hey, that's the only way we're going to get better, is, by identifying issues, and let's just tag up and solve them. So, but finally in 2011, my wife and I were having a really heart-to-heart talk, because I was down and out. I was like, oh, I want to help, and that's just my nature, but nobody wants to help because they see as the contractor. So my wife and I made, a bunch of prayers. I'm a devout Catholic, and we prayed on it. We spoke about it, and she's my rock, right? And that's when we were like, she said, you need to do this. And, in 2011, we made that jump and said, all right, we're going to do it. So in all honesty, it was $200 in the bank account and a lot of praying.
What was the business plan? So the business that you launched in 2011, that was SB Comm, the same business that you have today?
It was SB Comm. At that point, we were an LLC, just to launch. Uh-huh. The initial plan was to no longer be the sub under the sub, right? And, I know that world very well. So to be the direct subcontractor and then build the team. That would produce the revenue, right, to continue to build and grow. But the full picture was to eventually be direct contract, right? Direct contract to the consumer, to the customer, to the builder, to the architect, interior designers, et cetera. So that was the goal. And that shifted 3 years later. Finally, in 2014, again, my wife and I praying, and, she said, it's time. And I was like, I agree, it's time. So we cut the cord and went all in to go direct to the, builder market. By that time, we had our first daughter in 2012.
Just to add a little extra,
yeah, let's just add
responsibility to your obligations, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, again, we didn't see that. We see it as a blessing, because anytime God brings a child into this world,
yes,
a miracle happens.
That's much better said than what I just said.
Yeah. So that's the way we saw it. Like, she was our miracle. And during that time, we had two conversations. Conversation one, we were living in LA at that time. And we said, okay, we launched this company. This is great. However, we don't want to raise our child in LA. So we met here in Atlanta at first, and we both said it. We were like, yeah, we're going to go back to Atlanta. So we just jumped and went to Atlanta, and built it from there, got the contracts going, again, still on that contract level. And then, like I said, in 2014 was when we said, all right, we're going to do this. And we started doing direct reach outs. We started getting, direct, contact with builders, and they were interested in what we were doing and the process we had. It was a unique process at that time. And in 2014, they loved it. They loved the communication, the proactive approach that we have. And
Were you generally going directly to builders, or did you, like, when you moved to Atlanta to set up shop, what was your go to market? Who did you plan to solicit business from?
we planned first with the builder market.
Okay.
All right. We wanted to get into either semi-luxury, which at that time, right, times have changed. This is a pre-COVID time. The pricing at that point, when it was that semi-luxury, was in this market, that anywhere between 750 to 1 million mark. We could see technology being integrated at that level. So that was our original target. And we did reach outs, finding smaller communities, small niche communities. For example, one of them was Kenya Estates in Cumming. It was only 13 houses. And that was really unique because one of the things, and one of our 3 uniques, is having that personal touch and making sure that the customer knows we're here, right? We always approach every project with how we're going to help service the technology long-term. So that's what we wanted to stick to. And that was our approach to the builders. Hey, you now have a technology expert in your pocket, right? All we need to do is create the introduction at the right time. And that's how we approached it. A lot of builders loved it. They loved that they could let it go. Of course, proof is in the pudding, right? They didn't let go right away, but we had to show it with our proactive communication. And once they saw that we were very proactive and we were very communicative, that's when they just let it go. They're like, yeah, meet SBCom. They do our low voltage work. Just talk to them. Yes, you have to use them. And that was it. So, and then I created the relationships with the clients, and the trustworthiness there. And then, with time, we just continued to grow and continue to sharpen our knives and sharpen our process.
How has the business grown? So that 2014, where you set up shop in Atlanta, to the present, so say over that decade, what was it like? What was your growth trajectory like? Was it straight up? Was it up and down? Was it a roller coaster? What'd you go through?
Are we talking revenue or emotions?
All the above. Any entrepreneur relates to that statement.
So on a revenue wise, we had constant growth. It was mind-boggling, the growth that we had all the way through until COVID. And even through COVID, we kind of plateaued a bit. And then it took a small dive. But in all honesty, the relationships that we build and the service side of our business through COVID really just let us coast through it. It was really unique. We took a big dive in 2023 when that 8% interest rate kicked in. A lot of developers at that time that we had contracts with decided to say, well, it's cheaper to wait than to build. So we took a dive in 2023, but then kicked it right back into 2024 when all the contracts were saying, hey, we're doing that. And the contracts we landed were doubling up. Then we went with a 47% growth spurt from 2023, which was a huge taking on the team, and as an owner, right, making sure that my team has what they need. Emotionally, it was an absolute roller coaster. I talked to a bunch of other business owners, and I think we're all on that same boat. And you get your highs where you're like full throttle, let's go. As a visionary, you get 20 ideas a day, and you have all these crazy things, and you feel like all of them are great. And then you get your woes, and that triggers some emotional states in your brain, and trying to make sure that you're handling not only family life, right? 2015. So remember in 2012, I decided, hey, let me add fuel to the fire and have our first child. In 2015, we decided to cut the cord, and knowing we're going to have our second child in March of 2015. So removing all the contract stuff that was pay the bills kind of work, and going straight to consumer market, and juggling that with a newborn and a 2.5-year-old.
Sounds like a burn the ship strategy. Burn the ships, got nowhere to go, but figure this out.
Again, I bring it back to my faith. I know God's there, and I say it to my team all the time. This is not my company. This is God's company, and I just have to figure out how to serve him using it. Mm-hmm. And that's what I tell my team all the time, and we talk about our 5 core values, and they see that, right? So, but yeah, that was a really big roller coaster. COVID was a scare, 100% scare, but
it was a scare, but it turned out good, right? I mean, didn't your business end up popping pretty good?
It did. It did.
Maybe after the spring of 2020, you would have seen a rise by summertime, right?
Yeah, it was weird. That's the easiest single word explanation I can give of what happened during COVID was weird.
We thought the zombie apocalypse was upon us, and then suddenly we have it raining gold bars from the sky. It's like, this doesn't make sense.
When we got
depends on the industry you were in, of course, because that's a very selective statement. Some industries felt that, many did not.
Yeah, I think again, when we got flagged essential, right? But even the projects weren't there. Like, for example, I used to do about 20 theater rooms a year minimum. When COVID hit, I think the last theater room we did was about 2 years ago, like full on legit theater room. It's been more media room ish, or, media room / office ish, or, whatever the case may be. But that category went down. But again, with having all the different, the diversified funnel of different categories, we were getting a bunch of other different things in that helped us, but mainly service, because the customers knew we're always here, and they would always call us if they had an issue, and we were there. We were able to service, even if they needed remote support. So all those things helped us get through that time.
Right now, we're in the spring of 2025 when we're recording and when the show's going to air. What are you seeing the economy like right now for you in the Atlanta market?
Right now, in the Atlanta market, I'm seeing, again, developments going up. I'm not seeing a lot of home owners per se. Either they're purchasing a single family home or purchasing even like a duplex, right? In Atlanta to do Airbnbs and things of that nature. So I'm seeing a lot of build to rent in this market currently. And that organic shift of what we talked about earlier, that's what made us jump on that horse and go, because we're seeing that shift happening where, a lot of different builders and developers are going to that build to rent model, especially in the Atlanta market, that metro area. The outskirts more, still single family stuff and going in that realm. So that's still good, but that's what we're seeing a lot more of, is the build to rent.
How is the at the moment, as of the time of this recording, Trump's tariffs are in force with Canada, Mexico, China, Europe? I mean, they're in full force. What impact is that having on your business, if any?
To be honest, I don't think we had an impact. And the reason why I say this, and I'm pretty confident in saying this, is our proactive approach. So when we started to even hear that this might be happening, we knew the vendors that are out of the country. I'll use one as an example. Totem Acoustics is out of Canada. And we know the projects we have that are specified with Totem Acoustics. So what we did was we just proactively reached out to clients saying, hey, this could be potentially happening. Yeah, we won't install this soundbar till 9 months from now. I get it, but it's a 25% increase. I think we should just go ahead and purchase this now and not risk the increase in pricing. And we did that across the board in 22 total different active projects that we have right now. Looking at these projects and saying, all right, this is coming. How do we help our clients, right? And keep that budget where it needs to be. And that's what we did across the board. Not to say we got every single one, but we did mitigate a lot. I think there was only one project that we ended up having to pay the tariffs. And that was only because of, backlog of logistics to be able to get to that ordering and procurement process. It didn't happen on time.
If you look in your magic 8-ball, do you have any forecast on how long you think these tariffs stay in place? Do you think this is a short-term thing or a long-term strategy?
I'm not a fan of predictions, but if I were to, I think this is probably going to be at least a year. And I think it's just hey, I'm here. Listen to me. And if you don't want to negotiate, then you find another bus to ride. So I think it's a tactic, in my opinion. Any business owner knows sometimes you got to put the foot down. You got to put the line in the sand and hold them to it. There is in a book called Good to Great by Jim Collins, he references the CEO of Southwest Airlines of somebody who constantly sent a letter complaining about the outfits, about the environment, how they joke, etc. And I still, to this day, I remember, it just triggers in my brain. His response was, "We will miss you." He wasn't going to change his core values. He put the line in the sand. He knows his team did what Southwest Airlines want them to do, right? So that's what I believe this is. It's a tactic. And, it's playing chess. What's the next 5 moves? So that's what I see.
Makes sense. You mentioned core values. You mentioned mission and vision a few times. I know just from chatting with you that some time ago you started implementing EOS, the Entrepreneur Operating System.
Yes.
There's a famous book by Gino Wilco. What is it? Gino, I have it right here. Gino Wickham.
Yep.
Traction. Here, I'll grab the book. There you go. There's the book. Gino Wickman Traction. So you read this and you started implementing this book. I want to start, first of all, why did you decide to do that?
So, being in a business over 10 years and managing different teams, different personality types, I was trying to find that sweet spot. And it was a very difficult thing to do. And I felt alone. I was like, it's all on me to figure out the puzzle of life and how to be a part of different personality types. And at that time, still trying to figure all that out. Actually, a friend of mine, I call him a friend. He's provided me a lot of guidance, is Joey, actually, from One Vision Resources.
Sure.
And him and I were just chatting it up. And he said, "Rich, you're ready for this book. I'm going to give you a book." And he actually sent me the book. And then I read it. And it was a page turner for me. Again, I'm very process brain, right? So it was a page turner. I was like, I felt like I unlocked Pandora's box and I knew exactly what the answer was. Like, oh my gosh, this is the answer. So I initially tried to self-implement this process, thinking I can do it. And I quickly realized this is a bad idea. And I decided to hire a EOS implementer. And, his name is...
What year was this? What month or year did you make that call?
Oh, I made that call August 2023.
Okay.
Yep, in August 2023. And yeah, it was August 6th to the date. I still remember that.
I made the call August 2019.
Nice. Yeah, so in August 2023, like I said, we were interviewing for implementers, and we came across Brent Stromwell, and he's here in Gwinnett as well. And we just hit it off. So we decided to say, let's do this. And here we are.
It's a financial commitment to do that. I mean, not only in your time and energy, but you have to pay a fee for this implementer to come in and spend time with you and your staff.
Yes.
That's a hard decision for some business owners to make.
Yeah, it is. If you look at it, you would definitely get sticker shocked. But after, again, I prayed on this and so did my wife, and we decided to say we're going to do this. Because at the end of the day, I'm one person and I don't know everything. Nobody in this world knows everything, right? Even you could find people that have been hugely successful in business and they're retired, and you can talk to them. They don't know everything. So we decided to bring in that third-party business coach / implementer to provide that perspective of, I'm not the leader in the room. I'm now a participant. The commitment of time is every quarter, full day meeting, 8 hours with me, the leadership team, and our implementer. All right?
Just working on the business.
Just working on one whole day dedicated to work on the business. And that's what I found, and why I wanted to do this is because a majority of everybody's time was working in the business. How can I get my vision onto paper and have my team buy in on it? And I never knew how to properly communicate that. I always had this vision in my brain, but nobody else knows, but nobody's a psychic. So, we decided to take that leap of faith and go all in. It also becomes a weekly commitment, a 90-minute L10 check-in meeting with your leadership team. And if you're bigger, you got, departmental meetings that happen to keep that wheel moving in the right direction. So the amount of growth we had from 2014, even to 2023, we had, like I mentioned, 2023, we had a 47% growth with this process in place. And I didn't feel it was all on me. Mm-hmm. My team bought in. I am so blessed to have my team. My leadership team they're rock stars. And 2024, now going into 2025, we're looking at another almost 30% increase with contracts that already. So the growth is exponential, but we identify everything, whether we're beyond capacity in the seat that we're sitting in, and the culture now is very open. If there's an issue, let's slap that on the table. Let's discuss it.
Talk to me about healthy conflict.
Oh, I love healthy conflict. I absolutely love healthy conflict.
What is that, and what does that mean for your business?
Healthy conflict, it starts with one of our core values. One of our core values is, being humbly confident. And what that means is to go ahead and, if you feel this is the right decision for the company, for SBComm, we consider SBComm as a person, right? So we feel this is best suited for SBComm. We're going to make that executive decision, right? For the client and SBComm and call that done. But let's say that decision's wrong. Okay. We learn from that. That's another core value of eager to learn, right? We learn from that so we could build a bigger and better tomorrow. So healthy conflict for us is, if you have an issue, everything for us is an issue. It might not be an issue, right? But there's different types. There's an informational issue, means you just want to put this out on the table and let people know of a particular topic. A decision, feedback, or, hey, this is a problem. So we utilize a tool in EOS called IDS for our issues. So every week we spend 60 minutes on that. We have a list. We pick 3 of the most important that we feel is the most important that we need to solve right away. We identify it, right? So that's a format, right? Whose issue it is, who are you speaking to, what type, and in one sentence, no politicking, no, hey, my way's better than your way. No, one sentence, state your issue. And then we spent about 5 minutes just asking questions, trying to drill down to get to the root cause of the issue. And if we feel like we got there, then we even verbalize, is this the root cause? And then if we do, then we move to the next step of discussing and solving. But when it comes to conflict, you can't be fearful. You throw it out there. And I tell my team all the time the same thing. Hey, if I did something and it was wrong, call me out on it. That's okay. That doesn't faze me, because I'm going to take that information, I'm going to learn from it, and then we're going to figure out how to resolve it permanently. So that's how we utilize that conflict. And typically when we state the conflict, we state it in a particular way. There's 4 steps. This is the fact. It has to be a fact. This is my thought on the particular situation. This is how I feel about it. And this is what I want. And that helps create that healthy discussion without the politicking, without the emotion. Will we get emotional? Yes. I told you earlier, I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'll get emotional. Right. But I'm okay with people putting me in check and saying, hey, you're getting emotional on this, right? So that's fine. So that's why we use those 4 steps in outlining how we want to speak. And it's a thing that it just takes time. It takes practice. Takes practice. That's why I was super excited that 9 months from now, hopefully we will be graduating the EOS.
So what does it mean to graduate from EOS?
So typically what they say is, it takes around 18 months to 2 years to graduate, to learn all their tools, and even to be able to continue the company utilizing this operating system of running a company. You could move away from an implementer at that time and, be self-sufficient. And that's the goal, right? Because it's a heavy investment. However, we found the investment to be a really big return on investment. So in honesty, for us, I think we're going to continue that journey with our implementer. It's a relief to the team, to the leadership team. It's a relief to me as a CEO. So we might continue that. We haven't really fully decided what that means, but the essential definition is you're utilizing all the 20 tools that they teach you. You're utilizing the structure, and the whole team is utilizing it, and it's called followed by all.
Followed by all. So for people that are listening and they're curious, they're leaning in, maybe they're even replaying some of the last few minutes hearing you talk about this IDS function. What type of business leader should potentially lean into, whether it's EOS as a business system or another system? There are other systems out there, but when is it right for them to maybe pursue something like EOS?
So one is definitely the financial commitment, right? So like if you're a startup, it's going to be really hard unless you plan ahead to budget for it. My suggestion is, if you are creating a business plan right now, budget for it. Mm-hmm. By far, you will see.
How much should they plan to spend a year?
So ours,
it depends on implementer. There's different rate, like approximately.
I would probably say keep it at a range between 35 to 50,000 a year, depending on the implementer. But that's what I would go ahead. If you're creating that business plan, start budgeting for that. Start budgeting for that right away, because it will be a game changer in creating the business, with starting off with your core values, your 10-year target, the foundation and the culture of the company. Because every company out here, small, big, corporate, they're all built with people. Mm-hmm. So if you can't get that right and help the people excel, the company's it's gonna hit the ceiling. So the whole purpose of this operating system is to break that ceiling and keep growing. So, and not to say you will not hit another ceiling, of course you will, but then that's something you put on the table, a new IDS, and then break the ceiling again. Right? And that's the whole purpose behind it. But I would definitely say that. And then trying to remember what the second part of that question was. So, definitely on the startup part, but what was the second part of that question?
No, I was just trying to, the type of business leader, maybe what might they be going through where they feel like they're hitting a ceiling where this might be the right answer for them, whether they're right at, their first year or two in business, or whether they're 15 or 20 years in business. Is there a type of scenario or situation of how that CEO or that business leader, founder, what they might be feeling, where maybe they don't know about this, that this might be an answer to some of their problems?
Yeah. It doesn't matter how long you've been in business. If you're feeling like it all that weight's on your shoulders, you need to read traction. 100%. And I hear it from other business owners where I have actually personally shared the book with them as well. Like, ship them the book or whatever it is. And, because it happened to me. So, I felt like that's that need. I need to pass this information on to someone else. And, and I will be happy to do that. But you gotta be humble. Don't say, oh, books make me go to sleep,
Or I don't read books.
Yeah.
You can listen to an audio version.
Yeah.
Of the book.
Then listen to an audiobook, or put yourself in an environment besides on the bed at 10 o'clock at night trying to read a book. Yeah. I'll be asleep in 5 minutes myself. Then put yourself in a coffee shop, take a clarity break for an hour,
Yeah.
Set yourself a goal. I'll read a chapter a week. Do something to learn more. There is never a cap of knowledge. And that's why I fell in love with this industry, because technology changes so much. Every day I learn something new, right? That's exciting. But you have to have that level of excitement to learn, to better not only the company, but to better it for your team. Because once you have that happy team, man, sky's the limit. So
Sky's the limit.
Yeah.
Speaking of sky's the limit, you have some beliefs around sales and sales methodology, in particular, Rich, around, letting the I guess not holding back from the customer what's maybe in their best interest. Maybe, and you'll put it in much better words than mine. So you can describe for me some of your belief systems on maybe some of the common fallacies or errors that salespeople in our industry make.
Yeah. So our process, we have a 5-step process.
For sales?
Process, yep.
Okay.
We call it the customer journey, right? Or the proven connection process is what we call it. And that's that journey for the customer. So the first step is to identify the vision. So we want to be their nerd. We want them to trust that we're their nerd. We're going to give them the best information and help them make a decision. We're not making the decision for them. We want to help them make the proper decision, right? Very similar to how my implementer helps us make decisions for the company. Mm-hmm. So we provide that guidance with identifying the vision, set some expectations there, and then we'll recap that to make sure, hey, we got this right. The next step is we identify a scope of work and a budget behind that scope of work. So the scope of work is a really detailed scope of work. And essentially you're reading a story and it should portray your vision. And if it does, this is what the budget will entail to make that vision come to reality. That, what we call it, we set the bumpers on the bowling alley. So that way we can engage and move to step 3, which is designing the system. Now for us, we don't care if it's a $5,000 system or a $500,000 system. We're going to design all of them. We want to make sure we're providing that level of service throughout. We won't discriminate that, right? We'll design the system and provide those submittals to the customer. And then what makes us unique in that world, which for a lot of integrators who do offer design services, we could take it to implementation, right? Dealing with interior designers, dealing with architects, specifiers, they'll provide these beautiful plans. right? And it could be hundreds of pages and, great details and all that information. However, it turns into, hey, contractor, do this. So we provide that transparency. We'll provide that implementation process as well. If you don't want us to implement, that's fine too, right? That's why our process exists. But we can move into implementation. And then finally, step 5, which is part of the vision in step 1, how are we going to service that technology? Mm-hmm. So that we find most important. That's really important to our hearts. We make a joke with our clients all the time. Hey, get ready. If you're going to get ready to start designing, we're about to get technology married. Like
technology married. It's like trademark Rich Q at SP.
That's right. We're about to be technology married. And like you heard, I'm a Catholic. There's no divorce. So, but we want to set those expectations, because you go buy a car. Yeah, you could go buy a $100,000 Tesla right now. But did we really, when you went to go buy that, did the salesperson say, hey, by the way, by this time, you're going to have to replace these batteries for X amount? Did you go through that? No. We are going to go through that with you. And that's why we're your nerd.
At what point in the process do you go through that? Like that pain, the obvious realities that some of this tech is going to break down over time and need to be serviced, need to be replaced, need to be software upgraded. When do you have that dialogue with clients or prospects?
Step 1.
So right up front,
you
let them know.
As soon as I understand their vision of what they're trying to accomplish, if there's technology involved, I immediately turn into, okay, there's technology in these categories. How are we going to service that? And then we dive into that conversation. And at that point, you get that personal touch. I get to understand who the customer is, whether they're tech savvy, whether they're not. I've had customers that work directly for Google. They're obviously super tech savvy, right? So then they might not need a higher level of service from us. But it could be somebody who's not tech savvy. It could be a really unique home that has pressure sensitive floors and all this kind of logic, and they might want to change the routine. Okay, well then let's talk about how we're going to change those routines as your routines in your life change. Mm-hmm. We discuss all that because that's part of the vision. That's the only way you're going to paint that full painting, is to understand how we're going to service it.
So what, broad question, what percentage of your clients that you're doing tech installations for end up signing up for some type of service or maintenance agreement post-sale?
I know the numerical value of how many subscribers we have, which is 59 right now, out of, I would say, about close to 400. But a lot of those, the newer projects, I would say the conversion rate is around 75 to 80%.
So it's like your conversion rate on that service and maintenance conversation is getting better and better as time goes on.
It all is a matter of, I am going to quote a customer of mine, and I took it from him. I even posted it on social media. He used the term ROE, return on enjoyment.
Ooh.
I was like, I'm stealing that from you, because that's beautiful. Because in the business world, we talk about ROI all the time, right? Return on investment. But in that residential environment, what's my return on enjoyment?
Yeah.
Return on enjoyment is, okay, we need to understand how to service you so that way when something's wrong, how fast do you want us to respond to it with on-site if it's needed? You obviously can have 24/7 remote support from us, that we can resolve things. It could be Christmas Day, 2:00 in the morning. If your music system stops working, you got us on the phone trying to troubleshoot this for you remotely.
So what has resulted in your close rate on those plans in the last, I'm going to say the last year or two, being better than the close rate in the last 10 years? What's changed in the way you dialogue with your clients?
What's changed is that 5-step process that we talked about is the EOS way. So that's changed, making that transparent. And what's also changed is, again, learning to stop thinking like how do I explain it? The best way to explain is we get in the way of what the customer needs because we're the nerd. And then we start thinking about these different Band-Aids that we can do to keep the budget low, but still provide what the customer
think with their own wallet.
want. Right. But then in reality, it's a Band-Aid that could potentially cause future issues and cause a bad taste in that client's mouth. Understand the vision, get out of your own head, and provide what the vision needs.
Before we started recording, you were telling me a story about one of your clients that had a 15-year-old projector.
Oh,
And
yes.
maybe expound on that, because that kind of illustrates the point you're making now. The idea
Yeah.
that they could put that bulb in there, but they'd probably be better served with newer technology.
Yeah. So she's a fantastic lady. Her name is Sharon. It was actually a takeover at one point, and she couldn't get a hold of her integrator anymore to service her. So she found us through web search, and then I personally went out there.
I hear that she found you through this dirty word called marketing. She found you through the internet. Oh my gosh. Did you go there? Okay.
Yeah, I did.
Proceed.
Okay. So I personally went out there and in looking at the space and seeing what it was, her theater room stopped working. And I realized it was a Control4 system. I realized at that time, in all honesty, I was a total control dealer. I was not a Control4 dealer at that time. So this would have been a swap for us because we try to keep everything focused. But I realized, as with my previous experience with Control4, I was like, oh, the only thing that didn't happen was the projector didn't turn on. And I looked at the projector and the IR, blaster was hanging. And all I did was go, hey, it's all fixed. And then she was like, so at that point, she was like, I want to use you guys moving forward, to service me for any technology. And I was like, that's fine. I just want to forewarn you, we cannot troubleshoot your Control4 system. But she's like, no, I appreciate the honesty. That turned into years later. Now we are Control4 dealers. We've been Control4 dealers since 2019. We made the jump. And I informed her, hey, we're Control4 dealers now by email campaigns, marketing. And so she was aware of it. And just recently she wanted to cut the cord. So we went out there to cut the cord, get her set up on different streaming services, get rid of live TV. And her theater room has been down that whole time. She didn't want to invest on that at that time. And she finally said, I want to get my theater room up and running. So we set it up as a service call. We went out there and, my team went out there and was like, okay, we got it up and running, but the projector is giving us an error saying, it needs a new bulb. It wasn't projecting, right? So they're like, it needs a new bulb. The bulb's dead, but it's powering up. So I heard the information. We use Slack very heavily. So I saw it in the channel and I was like, hey, from what I remember, that's a really old theater room. I think we should just have the conversation with the customer. She clearly wants her theater room again. That was from 15 years ago. Technology has changed. We should definitely at least have the discussion so the customer can make a decision. And they came out like, well, no, I was on site and I don't know, so we're just going to replace the bulb. I think that's it. Okay. And I want my team to learn. So they went out there, replaced the bulb, got an error code, needs a filter. So my team, once again, posted it on Slack saying, oh, now it needs a filter. We need to make another return trip. And you heard me earlier about resource hours. My brain was going, oh my gosh, there's so many resource hours being drained into this. So once again, I posted, I was like, you sure we don't want to talk about doing a theater upgrade? And he was like, no. I think once we get this filter done, we should be golden. Well, we went out there, put the filter in, projector won't display. It just won't work. So at that point, they had to have the conversation with the customer and tell her, that we would reach out. I sit in the sales seat, so that it would be me to reach out. So I did the reach out and I just asked her very open and honest. I said, Sharon, what do you want out of this theater room? What is going to make you say, we accomplished this? What is that? What's that look like to you? And she's like, well, I just want to be able to enjoy my theater room and watch sports and have my grandkids over and watch movies with them. And I said, okay, you are aware that your theater room is 15 plus years old. And she was like, yeah. I was like, and I just gave her the analogy. I was like, look, you can have a 15-year-old car. We can continue to repair these components in the car to keep the car running. But as you and I both know, that's eventually going to be not efficient. And you're going to be spending more money on a monthly, bi-monthly, quarterly time to continue to service this room. Or we could just trade it in, like you trade in the car, get a new car, and get an enjoyment out of a new vehicle, new experience, less service, less headaches. And she's like, I figured this would be happening. I'm glad you were talking about this. And I said, to do this, it's going to require all of the above. I want to set the expectations. And I gave her a budget of $33,000 for the major components that need to be swapped. And I said, but it can go up or down, but we should start designing and get this right. And she said, all right, send me the retainer and we'll get started. I just got out of the way. I asked her, what does she want? That's what she wants. So why not provide it?
How did the project finish?
We're in design phase right now.
Awesome.
So
congratulations. What a neat success story on a way to best serve the client. Getting out of your own way and just serve the client and help solve their problems with your solutions. That's awesome.
Yeah, if we get out our own heads, I mean, you'll see the client will tell you what they need.
Rich, it has been awesome having you on Automation Unplugged. I promised you it would go by in a blink. And for folks that want to get in touch with you, list off all the ways people that are watching or listening and they want to meet you directly or they want to learn more about your business. Where can we send them?
Yeah, our first place would definitely be our website. Feel free to visit our website. There's a lot of content there. And thanks to One Firefly, there's a lot more content that's being available on our website. So that's a great source. There's also a form on there you can fill out that will come straight to our team.
Let's give them your handle. It's a SBCATL. So that's SBCATL.com is the website. Right.
Yep. That's our website. And another way of reaching out to us is our office number, which is 888-936-3237. That way we can definitely get on the schedule and see what you need. Like I said, we're here to help. We're here to be that nerd.
Awesome. And then is it okay if we put out your email?
Yeah. By all means, if you want to email me direct, you could email me at richard@sbcatl.com. That is my direct email. It will come only to my inbox, or our generic one, which is info. So just replace my name with info and you got it.
Awesome. I love it. Rich, it's been awesome to having you on Automation Unplugged and hearing your stories and your journey. And like so many entrepreneurs, it starts often with a leap of faith, which you took. And I know so many of your team and your clients and those around you are so appreciative. Your team here at One Firefly is so appreciative. So congratulations on your continued success. And thanks again for coming on the show.
I appreciate it very much.